What's happening, guys? It's Mike J, of course. I have a little bit of a different format going today. I'm still trying to work out the set and everything here, but so that's why it's always different. But anyways, so I had just found out that a guy that I knew from kind of like my younger days, my wild days, had passed away, and wasn't said it was because of drugs, but can only assume that's what it was. He had tried quite a few times to get out of that, and I tried to help him as well, and it just happens to get people once they go back that last time. I mean, I guess it's every time is the last time when you die, but it seems like shit is going well, and then you get sucked back into it, and that's terrifying for me because I don't ever want to get sucked back into it. I enjoy not on the chase for shit every day, and I enjoy not having to deal with these shitty people, and I mean, sometimes you come across somebody that's you know a decent person, and they're just kind of in an unfortunate situation, and that was this guy that had passed away. He may have been in that world, but he was a pretty good guy in general, and when he was sober, he's an even better guy. But I thought because of that happening, and I had been planning to do an episode on this guy here, Cadalack Ron. I figured because he kind of went out in a similar fashion, I'd do that video now. So I'm going to give a little backstory for those who don't know. Battle rap is it's come a long way since the days of 8 Mile and freestyling over a beat. Battle rap has become, and I know a lot of people that don't like hip hop will not give a shit about this episode, but it's a little bald spot. It's just the way it's like combed over. It's come a long way. It's now you get your battle like months in advance, and you know who you're battling, and you can kind of do some background on them. And the thing that I always liked about battle rap was the free speech aspect of it, because nothing was off limits. You can talk about anything you want, and vulgar shit, and then at the end you shake hands and go your separate ways. Become friends most of the time, most of them. The only thing that was off limits, and because of course there's always a caveat, free speech, but was anything against blacks. And that means, you can make fun of gay people, you can make fun of Asians, Latinos, whites, trans, anything you want. But if you said anything against blacks, you are racist. And Cadalack Ron was a very unique character because he looked at it as, no, we're going to break that stereotype, or that double standard. You guys are going to call me a redneck cracker, blah, blah, blah. I'm going to call you this, that, and the other thing. Now, by no means did he have any animosity towards blacks. He knew what side he stood on. He aligned with whites. Whites were his people. But he had lots of respect from a lot of different battlers that were black, Latino, anything. And the reason I kind of felt connected to him in a way was because I was very similar. Now, I've never been ashamed of being white, nor will I ever. Nor will I ever teach my children to be. And because of that, I feel like I got more respect from black friends, from Spanish friends, Arabic friends, because I knew I wasn't a fake motherfucker talking shit behind their back about, Arabs or blacks or whatever, I would make the jokes up front. I would make things up front because I just thought, you know what? I'm not going to say something behind your back that I wouldn't say to you. And that's kind of how I've lived, in my younger days, you could say that I wasn't the greatest person, but when it comes to things like that, I always wanted to make sure that I was real in that sense. Cadalack was the same way. Like I said, he had no animosity towards blacks, but he would call out things that he saw. And I'm very similar the same way. And I know a lot of people on our side feel the same way. Maybe there are some racists down the line, but it's just we're all lumped into that anyways. So just fucking own it. Yeah, sure. I'm whatever you call me. That's how I look at things. I take the power away from them when I do that. That words don't have as much power when you don't let them. But anyways, so Cadalack was very similar to that. Besides that, he was also very, I don't want to say woke because I hate that term, but he was very eyes open to a lot of the shitty aspects of the LGBT, like the Luciferian agenda into it. Just things like that. And he was up on this shit, 5, 6, 7 to 10 years ago. He was doing this. And it's crazy to me because it's like all of this stuff is coming out much more now. People knew about it back then, but it's more up front now, especially in the conservative movement. And like I said, he was talking about these things, years ago before a lot of people were. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to show a few different instances of him being up on things and kind of just not giving a fuck about what people thought and trying to break down that double standard. Mind you, he was one of the very few as well that would get away with this. There were many battlers that have, tiptoed the line of the black jokes and have been blackballed. One of the guys that videotaped all of the older battles, he got in hot water because he had laughed at a joke somebody made. It was like some real bullshit. And it was just kind of like embarrassing. Like, you're really going to let these people treat you this way after all you've done for them? But regardless, anyways, so yeah, I wanted to get into some of the instances where he was very up on things. Like, he did not hold back. He was very upfront. And like I said, he's in a very black culture, and they didn't like that a lot of the time, but he did not give a fuck, man. He wanted to break down that double standard, and he sure did. So here's the first one. I'm going to show. Let's see here. Okay. I think I had it kind of loaded it up. Am I on the right spot? So now I want to give a little bit of backstory here to this battle. This part that I'm going to show you guys, he ended up messing up his lines at the end. And that's like a big no-no in battle rap. Like, when you mess up your lines, it's kind of like game over. What he was probably going to say would have been even more insane than what he did. And it sucks that this got cut off because this would have been insane. But anyways, we'll go from there. Now, just another thing. This man right here, AP9, he's part of one of the West Coast groups. This guy goes up to Ron afterwards and says, "You're crazy, man. That shit was gangster," kind of thing. Like, That's the kind of respect he got for saying the things he did. Anyways.
I mean, you'd rather get those nails painted and then 2 rails straightened. So I killed a kid at the park, called it Fruitvale Station. And these Stockton cats better stop talking trash or they family be digging dirt like potting plants. I mean, I know that shit got you mad. Because the cops racial profiling your ass and they still get permits for them Glocks in hands. I mean, they can walk around the Stockton Abs with metal on their waist like boxing champs. I mean, there must be some days when you stop and ask, if you stop promoting guns and violence, then maybe you got a chance. But instead you choose to flood the streets with rocks and crack and only give each other props through raps about who's got the most guap or cash. So the true voice of your generation is lost to that, just like a gospel chant from Oscar Grant. I say, yo, I can tell he more feminine. I can see he brought 4 friends with him. I can kill them all and get away with it. Ask George Zimmerman.
Oh, fuck. There's the face.
I said, then you hit the streets and y'all just get stupid violent, right? I said, no, then you hit the streets and y'all just get stupid violent. I said, oh, fuck it.
See, that's where he messed up, and I was just like, oh my god, come on, man. If only, like, if only it would have finished that. We're gonna go with the second one now. I'm gonna load that up first, and then okay. Now that was 7:30 was the first part, so we'll go to that, and we will see where it goes from there. Okay, here we go.
I said, white people got fucked up on meth, and that fate is incomparable. I said, but you should have learned from your crack history. Don't mistake the parable. I mean, you see what black methed out kids are doing to your race, unbearable. I mean, if white tweakers were breaking bad, y'all motherfuckers are breaking terrible. I said, I'm serious, man. This is a problem that your race is facing with. As soon as y'all pop a molly, y'all turn gay as shit, start to play with dicks and look like you all got AIDS and shit. I said, motherfucker, you look like AIDS would look like if AIDS was a person. You look like a voodoo witch doctor that thinks he can cure AIDS by raping a virgin. I said, you look like Black Thought if he was covered in blacktop, or some crazy Maasai warrior who went on a hunt for a man-eating crack rock. I said, you look like the first guy that everybody ever smoked crack with. I said, you look like the first tweaked out Nigerian silent film actor. Charlie Chaplin. I said, now I could recite the 14 words, but this ain't a racist vision. I just think that your race should have listened to Nas and Belly and gone back to Africa because that was a great decision. I mean, how long do we have to watch y'all shiny black faces grinning while you rape our women and steal from this shameless system?
The faces in the background.
Hard-working white people that are just trying to make a living and with no remorse, and you say you're Christian, but really you want to talk about sinning because you can't wait for prison because you thrive in an environment where they chain and whip them. See, this shit was bred. Your DNA was written in the 15th century by a European man in a cave in Britain when he sold his soul to the devil and he came to get him to claim his penance. Your future was bleak, but there was a plain beginning. See, let's poison all these people with cocaine and venom, X on the forehead of the Cain incision, and now I'm the only person that'll speak the truth, and that's an insane decision. I said, Odin's looking down from Valhalla when Ron performs. I battle for the white lions that stay quiet but want to war. I said I battle for I got a record to prove it, and every penny that I make, I straight invested in music. I get arrested for stupid things. Hide in the bathroom, get the fuck out of here, double olive. Rap home, bitch. Caddy Ron, let's go. Time.
Now that was nuts. Yeah, that they weren't expecting that. And I mean, he's in rare form here. He's on top of his game. One more quick part from this one, and then we'll move on. But yeah, this was just another part that I found very interesting that he speaks about.
I said, hey, fuck the Ferguson picketing march. Pay attention, you'll see ethnic cleansing really.
This was back when Ferguson was on fire, back in the day. Probably is now too again, but this was back 2015.
Isn't that hard, especially when you got your own fellow black militant squads that just kill each other off like the city of God. I said, homie, your system is flawed, and you get killed if you dodge, because I engage with the mills like Nicki Minaj. I said I put the flame to your grill like hickory rocks, I'm snatching your chains up on film like King of the Dot. I said, homie, you're incredible, but your judgment's misguided. Cause you'll bust with the iron till gang injunctions are flying, but as soon as a cop kills someone, you riot. And I know the struggle for inner city peace, that's a struggle that's violent. You want Crips and Bloods to unite, but you can't trust the alliance. So when you look towards the future, it's with uncomfortable silence. Cause people like you have more to do with the death of Young B the Future than I did. Easy, let's go.
Now, Young B the Future was he was a rapper that was killed in Cali. Not really sure 100% on the story on him, but yeah, that's just kind of what he was getting at with that. Now, that was pretty intense. Like I said, man, I had spoken to some of his friends, like close friends, and I'd asked if I could use his music for my podcast, like for the intro. And I chose not to, and I explained to his friend that because as much as I want to, show his work to the world, I don't want to conflate him with politics too much because I don't want shit to happen to his older videos or, to get fucked on YouTube because it's explicit. So I really didn't want to like put it out there like that. Like I'll do an episode on him and kind of give a backstory, but I'm not going to use his music every time because eventually somebody's going to be like, oh, what's the theme song to this guy? And then find out. And I just don't want that kind of headache. So I just chose not to. Now, the next thing that I wanted to go over was something that he had said years ago about Michelle Obama. Now, I know a lot of people had spoken about Michelle Obama being trans back in the day, but the way the reaction comes, like the reaction he gets when he says this is just crazy because, they were like, what the fuck is he talking about? And it's like, it was so kind of hidden back then. Like it wasn't as like common knowledge as it is now. So I'm going to bring that up right now. Sorry, guys. Hold on. Pause. 8:32. Okay. Where are you? Load you up here. Okay, here we go.
Little like Mount Rushmore situation with myself, Enabled Abilities, and Skylar G and Caustic. Where's No Shame at? No, we're gonna get No Shame.
Now, No Shame is a trans battler that did a lot of interviews with like Vice and Vox probably and shit like that. Anyways.
Is that a boy or a girl? What do you mean? No Shame. Well, No Shame was a woman. No Shame was born a man and chooses to live as a woman and is undergoing the process identifies as a she. There you go. So she's a lesbian because she's marrying a chick. Yeah. She doesn't like. I think that's a big misconception too. Is that she's not a gay man? No, she's a lesbian woman. Wow. Yeah. That's crazy. Yep. I'd like to see see No Shame against a female MC because I think we've seen No Shame against the male MCs. I'd love to see how a female approaches battling
I want
No
to see
Shame.
No Shame versus 40 Bars.
Yeah, there we go. That's a great battle. I'd love to see like how both sides of it. I'd love to see how she
I would
battles a non-dude. You know what I mean?
I hope they get in a fight.
I just want No Shame to stop forwarding a Luciferian agenda of the LGBT movement as a whole.
Yeah!
Is actually just like satanic, and it's actually just like holy shit.
Yeah, that's, I never
like Michelle Obama is a woman.
fully never.
No, I mean a man.
You think so?
Hold on.
I know so.
Dude, I think
Yes, homo.
So I seen a video of her working out,
100%
and I would say that she is the most badass first lady that has ever been in office. Like tons of
With
ass.
the biggest penis.
This is crazy.
He's got proof.
Welcome back to the show, Ron.
Yeah, seriously, spicing it up.
You know,
But yeah. So that was kind of what he had mentioned there. And it just like, you know, like I said, it wasn't, especially in the battle rap community, that shit was not fucking out front like that. Like, yeah, people knew about trans, but they weren't like, oh yeah, it's Luciferian. Like I said, I mean, these things aren't necessarily groundbreaking, but for the time, especially for me, I wasn't involved in politics. Cadalack Ron wasn't involved in politics. And it took me, when I got involved with politics, to actually, you know, start finding some of this shit out. I've always been into conspiracies and I've always been into politics, but I was never into like the mix of the two until recently, like 5 years ago, maybe. But yeah, so that was another crazy thing that he had said that blew their minds. Like, I mean, they'd probably never heard of it and they probably still don't even think about it. But yeah, so there's one more thing that he had said about just about white guilt back in the day. We're gonna go to that one, and then we'll wrap this up here. So we'll go here. This might be actually loaded up.
Enjoy the kickback.
Okay. 23. Whoops. Okay, there we go.
Had like similar things about your guys' lives for sure. Both white people that rap that have done a little jail time that could, you know what I mean, like carry that into their rap persona and all that shit.
Absolutely. And that's also it's ironic, you know, this is the topic, whatever. But like I did this Q&A with RNBVA last week or whatever.
oh,
And
really?
yeah.
Oh, really?
And I was just bored, whatever, and it totally turned into this like, racial discussion where all these people were like, and I thought it was all these black people that were like talking to me, and I started like, well, you guys are black, you understand? And then someone's like, dude, none of these guys are black. Like they're like just like bored in college, like they like took a break from masturbating and they want to talk about
this
socioeconomic battle shit.
That's pretty much our.
See, does that not seem exactly like nowadays? It's all these whites getting pissed off at him about what he says about blacks, but they're not black. They're just being the white knights. No pun intended.
BBA in a fucking nutshell.
And I'm just like, dude, you know what? For anybody, like, I talked to this social worker dude, who's my homeboy on Monday. I was recording with his house, and he's like, dude, it's not like they're like, oh, if you're harping on the double standard thing, that's bullshit. It's like, no, there is a fucking double standard. We talked about this shit, and I'm gonna look. If Disaster's not racist for what he said to the dumbfounded at World Domination 5, he just gets a pass. But as soon as a white dude says it to someone else, it's racist, man.
I think that the argument that is always made in this instance, the reason that I feel way more comfortable making fun of other races than I do targeting black folks with racial jokes is because that there's the 400 years of slavery and then the economic circumstances, the way loans were given out, the way property lines were drawn, people's inability to, you know, like things, there were systems that were set into place in America that basically stacked chips against one racial group particularly more than any other. Everybody has their own tales of economic woe, but the reality is that in America, the chips were stacked against black folks harder than anybody else, and that's a part of our history. So that, well, not only that, because I think that's what everybody points to, and then everybody goes, well, slavery was X amount of years ago, and there's no, connection of my family to that. But what people don't realize is that, within this century, things were done that had effects, like the way that loans were given out and the lines were drawn for who can own property and who can own businesses, basically made it so one racial group was put into fucking poverty and had to try extra fucking hard to get out. So therefore, like, those jokes just don't work on that particular section.
And those people shouldn't become battle rappers.
But it's not even that. It's not that. It's not about. It's not about the way those jokes hit with black folks, because I don't think that's the problem. RMBVA is a prime example of that. It's about the way those jokes hit with white folks, because of course they hit bad with black folks. Yes, exactly. Because they're fucking guilty. Because we feel the guilt in our bones.
Speak for yourself.
From hundreds of years. No, and not everybody does, but there are definitely people who.
Right. So yeah, that was kind of just the last thing that I had kind of mentioned. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this. I might do another little kind of dive on another artist at some point, but definitely check out Cadalack Ron in any way you can. Check out his videos, music, makes great music, and rest in peace to him, and rest in peace to my friend Jesse, and hope you all have a great day. Thanks for watching.